The evocation of entities might be the most frustrating area of the occult for me. While performing spells can be done a lot of different ways, the mechanism behind it is pretty simple. You are the one performing it. There are clear steps for it you need to go through mentally. The method, the traditions, and the tweaks you put into it can vary, but you are in control of the whole operation. And I think generally everyone can perform a basic spell successfully. Maybe it's a small success, but if you just follow the basic mechanism behind spell work, you will have some kind of success. I'm almost 100% certain that if you faithfully follow the steps, you will have success with it. Now, when it comes to entities, it's really confusing. You are expected to apply the same mechanism to it. Meanwhile, it's not supposed to be a basic spell work. It's supposed to be the work of a force outside of yourself. I think it comes down to the same problem I talked about in my video about the psychological paradigm. If you think the success of evocation magic is completely up to you, and it also works the same way spell work does, doesn't it mean you don't actually believe in the entities? And if that's the case, why do it at all? Why don't you just do spell work then? And the confusion doesn't end there. There are 1,000 different ways people teach evocation, and all of them contradict each other. There is really no way to know which one you should apply. Our life is not that long. We have limited years to live in this earth. And a lot of these contradicting methods require long years before you can expect any result with it. And you could say, okay, let's just stick with one approach and practice that. But you have no way to feel certainty with any of them because all the teachers of all the other methods will deny the validity of the one you chose. Also, it's not like the just stick with one and practice that advice is universally accepted. A lot of people swear by constantly trying different approaches until you find one that works. But the other camp will say, oh, none of them will work if you don't stick with them. There is also another problem when it comes to advice in these practices. And this one deserves its own video because it pretty much applies to all areas of the occult. A lot of the advice comes from people who were born with certain abilities, or at least their skills were already at a higher level naturally. Maybe if they weren't born with it, at least they developed it somehow in early childhood. But the point is that in many books I've read about evocation or other magical practices, there was a point halfway through the book where the author noted, oh, by the way, I was always really gifted in psychic abilities. I saw spirits all around me throughout my childhood. And these words come from people who are writing a book about developing psychic senses or practices that require them. I mean, sure, it doesn't mean they can't teach you valuable things, but I just think if they didn't have to develop these skills from zero, they don't really know how to get you from level 0 to level 1. But the main thing I wanted to talk about in this video is your approach to the spirits. There are two main camps when it comes to this, and I think both of them are wrong, just for different reasons. There is the loving approach which emphasizes treating spirits with kindness or even admiration. The other one is the commanding and binding approach. My problem with the first one is that it just simply doesn't really work that well. When you are approaching spirits in this submissive manner, they don't seem to respect you. They don't show up. They don't really help you with any of your problems. It really seems like spirits act the same way people do. And it can be the case that these approaches work for different people differently, just like it is the case with humans. Like in my case, I am a natural people pleaser. And when I say people pleaser, I don't mean I am kind to people disgenuinely, or I am afraid of their reaction if I say something bad. I mean I am genuinely a people pleaser. Like I naturally just want to be nice to people. I always have this feeling inside me that most people are really insecure, and a kind word, some attention mean a lot to them. But regardless of my genuine intentions, most people take it as weakness. They think I am being submissive to them, which is not the case. But people often misunderstand these things. They project their own insecurities onto others. The point is that it seems to be the same way with spirits. In my experience, when I am really respectful and kind in my approach, they kinda ignore me. And even spirits themselves confirmed this to me in my communications with them that, yeah, you should give commands with the authority of the divine, which is more like the other approach of spirit evocation. My problem with the other approach is that I am not Christian. I can't use the systems that are built in this approach. Also, I don't want to bind spirits or threaten them. But based on my experience, I definitely need to be really authoritative when it comes to my approach. So it's kind of a middle ground I feel is the right approach. But honestly, I can't really find a system that fits this. I have this impression that the classical ceremonial approach is the most powerful and effective way to evoke spirits, both in terms of them actually showing up and also in succeeding with your goals, especially if you are not a naturally gifted psychic. Based on all that I've read, and also a strong, inexplainable feeling inside me, I think all the tools and complicated workings with these ceremonial rituals bring the strongest results. Sure, you can communicate with spirits simply by meditating a little bit, but it won't be really reliable. It will be largely some mental fantasy, at least if you are not naturally gifted. Maybe with enough practice it could improve. In my experience, if it improves, it takes so many years that it makes the ceremonial approach seem much more practical. Anyway, there are so many things I could go into regarding spirits and evocation. I'll probably make a bunch of other videos on these subjects. But until then, stay magical.